My name is Sarah, and I grew up in a small town called Millstone. It was one of those places where everyone knew each other, and life moved at a slower pace. My parents, John and Mary, were good people. They taught me the value of hard work and kindness. When I finished high school, I was ready for a change. I got accepted into a university in the city and moved away from Millstone. The city was huge, noisy, and fast-paced, everything Millstone was not. It took some time, but I adjusted. I studied IT and was lucky enough to land a job at a large company right after graduation. I was a bit of a loner, to be honest. I didn't have many friends. Most of my time was spent working or studying new tech trends. I liked the peace and quiet of my own company. After my parents passed away during the pandemic, things changed. It was hard losing them. I sold our family house in Millstone and bought an apartment near my workplace in the city. It was a nice place in a good neighborhood, which felt like a fresh start. I brought a few things from the old house to my new apartment, mostly memorabilia. One of the most important items was a painting by a famous English artist. It had been a gift to my great-grandmother and had been in our family ever since. It felt like a piece of home, something familiar in my new life. Work was my main focus. I also started a YouTube channel about information security. I posted videos on how to protect personal data, secure online accounts, and other cybersecurity topics. It became surprisingly popular. I got regular viewers who would message me for advice, and I was always happy to help. One day, I got a message from a guy named Mike. He said he loved my videos and had some questions about online security. We started chatting back and forth, and he seemed like a nice guy. Over time, our conversations became more personal. We talked about our lives, our interests, and our dreams. "Do you have time to grab a coffee sometime?" Mike wrote in one of his messages. "I'd love to chat in person." I hesitated for a moment. Meeting someone from online was new to me, but Mike seemed genuine. "Sure, why not? Let's meet up," I agreed. We met at a small coffee shop near my apartment. Mike was just as friendly in person as he was online. We hit it off immediately. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about his job in marketing, his love for hiking, and his dreams of traveling the world. As we got to know each other, our connection grew stronger. Mike was funny, charming, and attentive. He seemed genuinely interested in me and my work. I found myself looking forward to our chats and meetups. We started dating, and it felt like the beginning of something special. "Sarah, you're amazing," Mike said one evening as we walked through the park. "I've never met anyone like you." I blushed, not used to such compliments. "Thanks, Mike. You're pretty great too." Life was good. I had a job I loved, a popular YouTube channel, and a new relationship that made me happy. It felt like everything was falling into place. 6 months into our relationship, Mike decided it was time for me to meet his mom. I was nervous, but agreed. We drove to her house, a small place in a quiet neighborhood. We knocked, and Karen opened the door. She was tall, with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Hi, Mom," Mike said, giving her a hug. "This is Sarah." "Hello, Sarah," Karen said, shaking my hand. Her grip was firm, a little too firm. "Nice to meet you," I said, trying to smile. We went into the living room and sat down. Karen offered us coffee, which we accepted. When she came back, she sat across from us and started with the questions. "So, Sarah, Mike says you work in IT," she began. "Yeah, I do," I replied. "I work for a company downtown." "How long have you been there?" she asked. "About 3 years," I answered, trying to keep things light. Karen nodded, then asked, "What kind of salary does a job like that pay?" I was taken aback. Enough to live comfortably," I said, glancing at Mike for support. The rest of the visit was filled with similar questions, all aimed at figuring out my financial situation. By the time we left, I was exhausted. "That was intense," I said as we got into the car. "She's just protective," Mike said, starting the engine. "She'll come around." A year later, Mike and I got married. We moved into my apartment, and things seemed to settle down. But Karen's curiosity about my finances didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. She'd come over, look around, and ask about everything I bought. "Oh, is that a new couch?" she'd ask. "How much did that cost?" At first, I tried to brush it off. "I'm not sure, Karen," I'd say. "I don't remember." But she kept at it, checking price tags and looking things up online. It was like she had a mission to figure out exactly how much money I had. "Why does your mom care so much about what I spend?" I asked Mike one evening. "She doesn't mean anything by it," he said, laughing it off. "She just likes to know things." But it was a big deal to me. It felt invasive and disrespectful. I tried to set boundaries, but Karen didn't seem to get the hint. She'd show up unannounced, stay all day, and ask endless questions about my job and my purchases. One Saturday, I was looking forward to a quiet day at home when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Karen standing there with a smile on her face. "Hi, Sarah," she said. "Thought we could spend the day together." "Karen, I really need some alone time today," I said, trying to be polite but firm. "Oh, come on," she said, walking past me into the apartment. "We can have some coffee and chat. It'll be fun." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "All right, but just for a little while," I said, hoping she'd get the hint. We sat in the living room, and Karen started talking about her latest projects and plans. I nodded along, but my mind was elsewhere. I needed to find a way to set boundaries without causing a rift between Mike and his mom. Some time had passed, and Karen's visits to my apartment became more frequent and longer. It was like she didn't realize I had my own life and business to take care of. I needed some time to relax, but she didn't seem to get it. I hinted to Karen that she should visit less often. "You know, Karen, I really need some quiet time to work," I would say, but she pretended not to understand. It was frustrating. Eventually, I started leaving the house when she came over, just to get some peace. One day, Karen followed me when I left. She caught up to me and suggested we have a chat over a cup of coffee at a nearby restaurant. I agreed, thinking it might help clear the air. We sat down, and Karen ordered food for herself. When the bill came, she pretended she had forgotten her card and cash. I didn't want to make a scene in public, so I paid for her. But I was fuming inside. When we got back to my apartment, I let her know exactly how I felt. "Karen, this can't keep happening," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You can't just show up and expect me to pay for everything." Karen looked offended. "I didn't mean any harm, Sarah. I thought we were just spending time together." "Spending time together doesn't mean taking advantage of me," I shot back. "I have my own expenses and responsibilities." Karen stormed out, clearly upset. When Mike came home and heard about the incident, he was not happy with me. "Why can't you just be nice to her?" he demanded. "She's my mother." "Mike, she crossed the line," I said, feeling exasperated. "She needs to respect our space and my boundaries." "You're taking this too seriously," he said dismissively. "Just let it go." For a while, Karen didn't come around. It was a relief. But then I noticed something strange. The painting in the living room, the one I inherited from my parents, was hanging crookedly. It was odd because I always kept it straight. I asked Mike about it. "Did you touch the painting?" He looked up from his phone. "Oh, Mom took it for an appraisal. She wanted to know its value." I was shocked and immediately called Karen, ready to confront her. But as soon as she picked up, she started talking. "Sarah, I was just about to call you," she said cheerfully. "The painting is worth $400,000. We need to sell it." I was furious. We? It's my painting, Karen. You had no right to take it. Oh, come on, Sarah, she said, her tone changing. Think about what we could do with that money. I said no. I interrupted. Don't ever touch my things without asking. Karen was silent for a moment, then hung up the phone. I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. How could she think it was okay to take something so valuable without permission? When Mike got home, I told him about the call. She wants to sell the painting, I said, still fuming. So what? It's just a painting, he replied, brushing me off. Just a painting? It's a family heirloom. It means something to me, I said, my voice rising. You're making a big deal out of nothing, he said, clearly annoyed. Just drop it. I decided to move the painting to my office where I could keep a closer eye on it. I also set up a small camera to make sure nothing else went missing. I needed to protect what was mine, even if it meant taking extra precautions. I got home early that day, something I rarely do. The house was quiet when I walked in, but that silence broke as soon as I stepped into the living room. There they were, my husband, Mike, and his mother, Karen, sitting casually on the sofa, like they owned the place. Mike? What are you doing here in the middle of the day? Shouldn't you be at work? I asked, genuinely confused and surprised. He looked up at me with a lazy shrug. I quit my job, he said casually, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. You make enough money for us anyway. Karen nodded in agreement, a smug look crossing her face as if they had planned this moment. That's right, Sarah. Why should he work himself to death when you earn plenty? I felt a rush of anger and disbelief. Are you serious? I snapped. You quit your job without discussing it with me, and now you expect me to support both of you? Mike stood up, a grin spreading across his face, an irritating calmness in his demeanor. Well, yeah. And if we divorce, I'll need alimony. Fair's fair, you make more than enough. His words hit me like a slap. This was their plan? To use me for money? I couldn't believe I was hearing this. That's it. I want a divorce, I declared, my voice firm even though my heart was pounding. Karen chuckled darkly from the couch. Good luck with that, dear. We'll see you in court. The venom in her voice was palpable. Mike just smiled, grabbed a duffel bag from the floor, and started packing his things right then and there. I stood frozen for a moment, watching this scene unfold with a mix of shock and clarity. The clarity hurt, the realization that this man I had married, and his mother, had been plotting against me. As Mike walked past me to the door, he turned and gave me a mock salute. See you around, Sarah. Karen followed him, throwing me a look that could curdle milk. Prepare your checkbook, she sneered as they left. The door slammed shut behind them, leaving me in a deafening silence that filled the room with the weight of what had just happened. I slumped into a chair, my mind racing. This was a nightmare, but it was my reality now. After a few minutes, I shook off the shock. I picked up my phone and dialed Tom, Lisa's husband, who was also a lawyer. Tom, it's Sarah. I need your help. Mike just left me, and he wants alimony. And it's not just that, he planned this, with his mother. I need to file for divorce, and I need it to be bulletproof. Tom's response was immediate and supportive, a lifeline in the chaos. I'm on it, Sarah. We'll make sure you're protected. They won't get away with this. The day I filed for divorce marked the beginning of a bitter legal battle. The first court meeting was a nightmare. Mike sat there looking all innocent and started spinning his tale. He told the judge how he had lost his job and how I had abandoned him in his time of need. He painted himself as the perfect husband who did all the housework and supported me in everything. It was all lies. But the worst part was when Karen, his mother, got up to testify. Your Honor, Karen started, her voice dripping with fake concern. My son is a victim here. Sarah treated him terribly. She controlled everything, made all the decisions, and now she's throwing him out just because he lost his job. She's a real domestic tyrant. I sat there, stunned. How could they lie so blatantly? I looked at Tom, who nodded and stood up to refute their nonsense. Your Honor, Tom began. Let's look at the facts. Mike's story doesn't add up. Sarah supported him financially and emotionally, and there's evidence to prove it. The claims of her being a domestic tyrant are not only unfounded but also an attempt to manipulate this court. But I could see it in the judge's eyes. Mike's emotional performance had struck a chord. His crocodile tears and Karen's supportive act were making an impression. As we were leaving the courtroom, Karen sidled up to me, a smirk playing on her lips. You think you're smart, Sarah, but just wait. You'll lose. And when you do, you'll be paying out for years. Her words stung, and for a moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. But I squared my shoulders and met her gaze. We'll see about that, I shot back before turning to leave, Tom reassuringly at my side. On the drive home, my mind raced. The gall, they had to twist everything and paint me as the villain, it was surreal. Tom reassured me we'd fight back, that we'd bring out the truth, but part of me worried. What if the judge really believed them? The weight of the upcoming court decision pressed heavily on me. Sitting in the quiet of my living room next Saturday, the possibility of losing felt too real, too close. I wasn't ready to let Mike and his mother take everything from me, not without a fight. Feeling the urgency of the situation, I picked up my phone and called Lisa, whose husband, Tom, was also my lawyer. Hey, can you and Tom come over? I really need to go over some things for the case, I said as soon as she answered. When they arrived, we started with some coffee, trying to ease into the work ahead. As we sat in the living room, Lisa suddenly pointed towards the painting I had returned to its place after Mike left. Doesn't that painting look brighter to you? She asked, squinting slightly. I turned to look, and sure enough, the color seemed more vivid than I remembered. A rush of suspicion hit me. I excused myself and hurried to my computer to check the hidden camera footage from my office. I skimmed through the recent recordings until something caught my eye. The footage from a few weeks ago showed Mike and his mother in the office, looking suspiciously around before approaching the painting. They took it down, and Mike disappeared off-screen only to return with another painting, which they then hung in its place. I cranked up the volume, straining to hear their whispered conversation. Mike's voice was clear. Once we swap this out, she won't even notice. Then we will sell it, and it's all ours. Karen's laughter followed. She trusts too easily. Once we file for divorce, I'll make sure you get alimony out of her. She's just a gullible fool. My hands clenched into fists, anger and betrayal swirling through me. I stopped the footage and took a deep breath, trying to compose myself. I returned to the living room where Lisa and Tom were waiting. You guys need to see this, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. We gathered around my computer as I replayed the video. Their expressions turned from concern to shock as the plot unfolded on the screen. After the video, we looked at each other, a mix of emotions crossing our faces. Finally, Tom broke the silence. This is it. This is the proof we need to crush them in court. We spent the rest of the day strategizing. Tom outlined the legal arguments while Lisa helped me organize the evidence, ensuring everything was in perfect order for the court. As they left, Tom assured me, with this evidence, the judge will see right through their lies. The next court date was one I approached with a mix of dread and determination. Today, everything would come to light. My lawyer, Tom, was ready with the hidden camera footage we'd discovered, which we hoped would turn the case decisively in my favor. As the judge called the court to order, Tom immediately asked permission to present new evidence. Your Honor, we have video evidence that is critical for this case, he stated clearly, his voice resonant in the quiet courtroom. The judge nodded, allowing us to proceed. Tom connected the laptop to the projector and played the video. The courtroom fell silent as the footage showed Mike and his mother in my home office, plotting their deceit and handling the painting. The color drained from Mike and Karen's faces as they watched themselves on the screen, their schemes laid bare for all to see. The impact was immediate and palpable. Once the video ended, the judge slammed his gavel, calling for a recess. "We will take a short break to examine this evidence," he announced, and the court buzzed with whispers as everyone filed out. When we reconvened, the atmosphere in the courtroom was charged. The judge took his seat and wasted no time. "Having reviewed the evidence presented, I am ready to make a ruling," he declared. His voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt about his confidence in his decision. "The evidence clearly shows an attempt to defraud the plaintiff, orchestrated by her husband and his mother," the judge continued, his gaze stern as he looked over at Mike and Karen. "As such, I grant the divorce in favor of the plaintiff and rule in her favor in this lawsuit." But he wasn't finished. Turning to his assistant, he instructed, "Please call the police. We have a case of theft that needs addressing." My heart pounded as police officers entered the courtroom and approached Mike and his mother. Karen began to sob openly, her cries filling the room. "I was forced to do this because of my debts," she pleaded, her voice breaking as the officers handcuffed her. Mike stood silent, his expression one of shock and defeat. They were both escorted out of the courtroom, and a murmur rose from the gathered crowd. The judge then turned to me. "The painting will be returned to you, Ms. Jenkins. I'm sorry for what you have endured." As I left the courtroom, the reality of what had happened started to sink in. I had won, but the victory was bittersweet. Watching Mike and his mother being taken away was not something I took pleasure in, but it was justice. That evening, celebrating with Tom and Lisa, I felt a chapter of my life closing. "What will you do now?" Lisa asked as we raised our glasses. "I'm going to focus on my channel, maybe even expand it. Share my story, help others who might be facing their own battles. I want to turn this experience into something positive." 2 years had slipped by since the courtroom drama unfolded, wrapping up that chaotic chapter of my life. I had found my rhythm again, focusing on my work as an IT specialist and pouring my energy into growing my YouTube channel, where I shared tips on data security and personal stories to help others protect themselves from fraud. One evening, as I was wrapping up a video on cybersecurity measures, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed a number I didn't recognize, but curiosity got the better of me, and I answered it. It was Mike, my ex-husband. "Hey," his voice came through, hesitant and a bit strained. "It's Mike. I just wanted to tell you that my mom and I got out of prison. We're living in a rented place now. It's pretty cramped, but it's something." I paused, taking a moment to process his words, my grip tightening around the phone. "Okay," I replied coolly, wondering where this was heading. "Well, I was thinking, maybe we could try again. Start over?" His voice was hopeful, but carried a hint of desperation that didn't sit right with me. I let out a short, dry laugh, more out of disbelief than amusement. "You've got to be kidding me, Mike. After everything, you really think I'd take you back?" There was a pause, and I could almost hear him wincing on the other end. "I mean, we were good together, weren't we? Before all the legal stuff." I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. "Mike, listen. You betrayed me, and you did it for money. I don't associate with traitors. You and your mother made your choice, and now you have to live with it. Don't call me again." Hanging up the phone, I felt a surge of empowerment. It was a confirmation that I had truly moved on, no longer bound by the past or the people who had tried to drag me down. Turning back to my work, I decided this would be a good story to share on my channel. Not just the call, but the whole ordeal. It was a powerful example of why vigilance and security are crucial, even in personal matters. I set up my camera and started recording a new video. "Hey everyone," I began, my voice steady and clear. "Today, I want to talk about something a little different. I want to share a personal story about how I used a hidden camera to uncover a serious betrayal and fraud in my own life." I detailed the story, explaining how I had set up the camera, what it had recorded, and how it had played a crucial role in my legal defense. "This is why it's so important to stay vigilant," I concluded. Technology can be a powerful tool in protecting ourselves from those who seek to deceive and exploit us. The video went live, and the response was overwhelming. Messages of support flooded in, along with stories from viewers who had faced similar challenges. It was clear that my experience resonated with many, providing not only a cautionary tale but also a message of strength and resilience.